Hey guys, I've got a tough springtime conditions tip for you. Now normally you think springtime, conditions are really good, bass are really biting well, and I can pretty much throw whatever I want. And sometimes it's just not the case. You know, they get in those spawning areas, they move up in there, and something happens. There's a cold front, and they just shut down. And your faster moving baits, your crankbaits, your spinner baits, they're just not gonna catch them. You gotta slow down and throw something a little different. Now I've got a tip for you that involves breaking out the spinning gear, but it's gonna help you catch more fish. So let's get into it. Now this technique involves a little finesse, and I'm talking about throwing little worms. And 4 and 5 inch worms is where I like to stay. And two of my favorites are Zoom 5 inch finesse worm. This thing's probably caught 1 billion bass in its history. And a Lake Fork Trophy Lures baby ring fry. A little different profiles to these two. The ring fry's got some ribs in it, a little bit better in stained water. The finesse worm's a little bit better in clear water. But I'm talking about rigging these things wacky style. And if you've never rigged anything wacky style, it's really simple, but very effective. So let's get into how you put the hook in this thing to make it go wacky. You know, there's a lot of different kinds of hooks. You can pretty much throw any kind of hook in the middle of a worm and call it a wacky worm. But in order to catch some more fish, I like to use a really specific type of hook, and it's a finesse wide gap hook or an octopus hook, something of that style. It's a really round hook. It's a short hook, but it's really good at catching these fish. You know, you don't want to really pound the hook into them on the light tackle, so you want to make sure you get a really sharp hook. And one that I really like from Gamakatsu is this finesse wide gap hook in the 1/0. And it really is a very sharp hook and a very effective hook, and I like it in the regular version and also the weedless version. It just has a weed guard on it that you can put on there if you're fishing around, you know, heavier cover, grass, docks, things like that. And all you do is take your hook and you're gonna go into the center of the worm. Now, I like to do mine a little bit different. I'm not sure that it really makes a difference, but I think it holds on the worm longer. You get more use out of your worm, the rigging it the way I do, and I think it helps keep you out of the cover a little bit more. But what I do is I'll take the hook and I'll find about the middle of the worm, and I'll go in about halfway into the meat of the worm, and I'll keep the hook point facing towards the nose of the bait, and then I'll come out on the back of the worm just like that, go all the way through. Just like that, and then instead of rigging it in the middle, now you've got 2 points of contact with a wider base. It's gonna keep your bait on there a little bit better, and you can get more use out of it. So this is the way I like to do it. And then the next thing that I'll do is I'll take a little weight. And I'm not talking about a bullet weight, I'm talking about a little nail weight. And you can pick these things up at a lot of different tackle stores. You can also just use regular finishing nails from a hardware store or something like that. But these nails really help to give it a little added weight, so your worm's not floating at the surface, you know, barely sinking. It lets it sink at a nice natural pace, but it also helps you cast a little bit farther, and it'll give the worm a little bit different action. It'll kind of spiral down sometimes, so it's really cool. And sometimes I don't use the whole weight. You know, if it's not as windy, I'll break it in half or something like that. You can run it back and forth a few times and break it. And I'll take that nail weight and I'll just go right into the nose of the worm, just like this. Then make sure it goes all the way in. And you're ready to go. On the ring fry, I do it a little bit differently though. Because Lake Fork Trophy Lures makes a specific weight for this worm that is for wacky rigging, and it really is a nice little added bonus. Takes the work out of it. You just take this little ring weight right here, you go right in over the worm, you pull the worm through, just like that, put it right in the middle, and then you take your hook, and I rig it up the exact same way. Just go in just like that, and then your weight, your ring weight is right in the middle there, so it's really not going to fly off. This weight also helps keep your bait on there longer, and it's just a really nice way to rig it up wacky style to give it a little extra weight. All right, now that you got your worm ready to go, it's time to get your rod, reel, and line ready to go. Now, the best way to effectively fish these little worms is on light spinning tackle, and I like to use a medium light action rod, 8 to 10 pound fluorocarbon line, and normally I'll use a braided main line with an 8 to 10 pound fluorocarbon leader on there. I'll put about a 10-foot leader, but you can throw 8 to 10 pound fluorocarbon on the reel and it's good to go. Make sure you get a good little spinning reel that's got a good drag on it, and the main thing is the rod, because when you fish these light little worms, it's hard to cast them on bait casters with heavier lines. So throw you some light line on a spinning rod, get a medium light action, because it's going to allow you to load up the rod, cast the worm farther, feel those little bites, and work the worm effectively. And also very important, not break the line when you set the hook. If you're using lighter line, you gotta match it with a good spinning rod. My choice is the Dobyns Champion Series 702. It's a finesse rod, basically designed for doing what we're talking about. And it's got a real soft tip on it and just makes it a very effective rod for doing this. So where do you fish these things? You know, springtime bass are moving up close to the bank, they're getting ready to spawn, and you can fish it around a number of things. Grass, docks, you know, you can fish it around on points, little gravel beds, things like that. Anywhere that they're holding on, areas that you know they're in, that you got bites maybe earlier in weeks past, you know they're around there, they're just not biting. This is where you want to throw. The key is to be slow, patient, work the worm very effectively around the cover and whatever you're fishing around, and you're really going to get more bites. The spinner baits, the crank baits, the things like that that are moving by them, when they're just not hitting those, it's time to break this thing out and go slow. The wacky style is just very natural. Fish can't stand it, and when a big old grumpy bass is sitting there saying, I don't know if I want to move up yet, I'm not sure if I'm really hungry right now, and that wacky worm falls in front of their face, they're gonna eat it. So get your spinning rods out, get the little finesse worms out, and go catch some bass when the conditions get tough. Till next time, I'll catch you guys later.
Oh gosh, I mean, we haven't seen fish under 3 pounds. Are you kidding me? You know,
I could be a guy.
you just gotta be excited.
What I've been saying